In a monologue recently, I was talking about the lovely people of Biggleswick. You may remember Biggleswick, the town nestled between the counties of Bedfordshire and Goodham, an allegory town of my invention. But you may remember I was talking about the Biggleswick people and the sort of things that they were not happy with and the sort of things they didn't want, which of course is a very negative way of looking at things, what people don't want as opposed to what they do want. And I thought today I would address that in a slightly different way. Firstly, I'm going to smoke my pipe. I hope you don't mind, because we now know, of course, that the nicotine in the tobacco is actually very good for us and quite handy for any of this nasty stuff that might be going around. And so I shall pack my pipe and have a little puff. Why not, indeed? So in this one, the Biggleswick people say, yes, these are the things that they would like. And I don't blame them. I've made a little list of the sort of things that I imagine the people of Biggleswick would be interested in. Of course, I can't speak for them all, but I dare say that the majority would share this. And I would be interested to know if you share this view. And you can make your comments known on the space provided, of course. Let me just get this out the way. By the way, for those interested, I am smoking something called guilty pleasure. I don't feel guilty at all by smoking my pipe. I actually feel invigorated that, again, one has denounced something that the powers that be are determined for us to believe the mainstream message, and actually it turns out turn it the other way around. So anyway, yes, what does the people of Biggleswick say to? Well, of course, farming is one of those things that I would definitely think in a rural community such as Biggleswick, that the farming would most definitely be something that would be up there, but not monoculture. No, thank you. None of that nonsense, not one crop and depleted countryside, but plentiful farms. It dawned on me that I had a sign up here that people had put out saying, no farm, no farmers, no food. But actually, that's a negative way of looking at it. Instead of no farmers, no food, we should be saying more farmers, more food. And that's what I believe the people of Biggleswick would want. More farming, more food, more locally produced. I keep blowing my little pipe lighter out. Probably needs a bit more gas. More farmers, more food. And locally produced. Keep the food close to hand. It hasn't got to have all those green carbon so-called air miles and all of that. If you could produce it, and why not have more farms? It would be much more beneficial. You could walk around the farm and see the quality of the food. You could see whether the farmer is putting pesticides, fungicides, insecticides and all of those other nasties onto his plants. You could meet him and talk with him. Perhaps he'd have a farm shop, as we see with Mark Byford and the bowler hat farmer. A brilliant idea, a brilliant concept. Lots of farms locally producing seasonal stuff organically, putting back the minerals and vitamins into the soil. Not large scale, but small scale. That, I think, is what the people of Biggleswick would be saying, yes, please, too. Clean air. Clean air is something. Of course, we see in London these clean air zones, or in the large cities, and they penalise people, apparently, for driving vehicles. And we do know that these diesel and petrol vehicles now are producing a better clean air than ever before, and yet it seems these people are being penalised. I wouldn't have any of that ULEZ scheme in Biggleswick. No, goodness sake. The clean air I would be talking about is less industrialisation on a massive scale of commerce, where we're making stuff for the sake of it. But more particularly, clean air without the aeroplanes spraying their nonsense. The Biggleswick people would not put up with that. And on that, clean water. The plants would be providing water from wells, from the aquifer. They would be making sure that anybody who supplies water to people, it would be water and not water with a bunch of chemicals in it. And they would not be permitted to supply fluoride and things like that. So clean water is what the people of Biggleswick would like. Thank you very much. Family-run businesses. We mentioned that they don't want the corporations coming in, and quite rightly too, these dead entities in which nobody is really responsible for anything and nobody signs any paperwork. We want to be able to contract, if you need to contract, with another man or woman. Family-run businesses would be a way to do that. Sole traders, if you like, people with integrity. My handshake is my bond, that my word, you know, you have my word, that gentlemanly agreement. This is where we need to return to, rather than the nasty, pernicious, oh, we've got an agreement with small print, terms and conditions which update, and all of that nonsense. No, no. Plain and simple English if there's a contract. Small family-run businesses, the high street thriving with those butchers, bakers, haberdasheries and, you know, all of the old businesses, not a big superstore out of town under the auspices of pretend brand names. Real people who you can really talk to, with shop assistants who actually know the product. When I used to buy photographic equipment in the old days, you'd go into an old photographic shop and the old boy in there used to know about photography. He used to know exactly what these things were, how they worked, how a light meter works, a cine camera, an SLR camera, projectors and screens, and all of the paraphernalia photography people like. Now, these are youngsters who are not really trained on anything. They have no passion. It's just a job. It's not something they're that interested in. We've gone down the wrong path, clearly. And the people of Biggleswick would not want that. They want to go in with the reassurance that they're not being sold something which is making the sales assistant a little profit because that's the thing he can make the most money on. But actually they listen to the customer, and the customer is given something of value, true value, that is right for them. And the business is repeated. So most definitely the small businesses. Small, of course, is beautiful. If you're wondering why I'm continually lighting my pipe, is because when you talk and you don't concentrate on just keeping it going, it will go out. And I didn't want to delay you with loads of puffing, but I did want to share the beauty and the pleasure of smoking a pipe. Small, I think, would be beautiful, small and plentiful, rather than large and few. So loads of shops, loads of businesses, loads of parks, loads of spaces, loads of fun, loads of things that people want, rather than fewer and larger and one size fits all. Everything would be catered to the individual, which I think is essential. And what about the children? What about young people? Youth centres, where did they all disappear? I think the people of Biggleswick would want plenty of youth centres where the youth of the day can go and talk and debate and draw and play and have fun, have bands and all the things that they want to do under many different opportunities and many different roofs, so that they can meet one another on real turf, as it were, instead of in the virtual world of the reality. Local newspapers. Whatever happened to local newspapers? They were hounded out, were they not? Bought up by big conglomerations. Newspapers. I remember when I used to do the old video testimonials for radio stations, trying to sort of get people interested. The radio stations were all being bought up by these very large companies now, that you can drive across the country and it's the same bloody people, the same voice, the same style, the same music. We saw for a while community radio try and come back. We need more of that. community radio, local radio, that is talking about the locality, talking about things that might be affecting people, to get people much more interested introspectively on their local area. Parochial is good. Be interested in the block of flats that's going up, that it is beautiful, not ugly, that it is necessary, not there on the backhander thanks to a brown envelope to some developer. The new builds as well. We need to get back into learning and understanding and caring for our community, rather than thinking about people across the world on the global format, which is what radios and television has done, has made us think about people that and be worried about people on the other side of the world that we cannot possibly help in any shape, form or size, and yet we're concerned about them when we should be more concerned and helpful and integrated in our locality with the people that are really there. That, to me, is where the newspapers and the local radio stations would play an active part. Another thing that the people of Biggleswick would like, of course, is to be able to park their cars in town for free. Why are we charging people to park their cars? Encourage them to come into town and spend their money in the small local businesses. Encourage them to be able to spend a day in the coffee shops and in the malls, the shopping malls, and the lovely little lines of independent stores from pillar to post. Make the parking free. The people of Biggleswick would most certainly want to do that. And of course, one of the things they would like is all the prices free of tax, unnecessary tax and VAT. We've been led to believe that these taxes are absolutely necessary to pay back the national debt, and how's that going for us? No, I think the people of Biggleswick are well aware that we are no longer in the EU, wondering why we're paying VAT, the value added tax. What value is tax added to any product, I would ask. And I'm sure the people of Biggleswick would be saying, no, we're not having any of this. We want things. We want a good deal. We want the shopkeeper, if they've gone to any effort to make something nice, to be rewarded, and the customer rewarded. Nobody else need be involved. Shareholders, the government, nobody else need take a cut of that. Just the customer and the shopkeeper. They're the two that would have that negotiation and that trade. It's a private transaction and nobody else needs to start taking some money. The people of Biggleswick, I think, would also be absolutely in favour of keeping the traditional customs and events from the past, and perhaps starting some new ones. Making sure that people in the community have a good idea of their background, where they've come from, who they are, what sort of people they are, what's important to them. The people of Biggleswick come from a dairy farming. Wick means farming, dairy farming in particular. And so the people of Biggleswick, of course, would have that tradition of dairy farming. They naturally would drink raw milk because of the health benefits of it, rather than the drastic nonsense of pasteurisation and homogenisation, which basically kills anything worthwhile in milk having. They may not be that bothered about things like oat milk and other pseudo milks, and have actually proper milk. So customs and things like that. Beautiful architecture. If anything is going to be built, it is going to be built with a measure of aesthetics. If you go back and look at some of the Victorian buildings, and in particular some of the utilitarian buildings, for example, in I think it's Brede in East Sussex, there is a pumping station. And inside this pumping station is a huge steam engine with flywheels and various brass governors and all sorts of bits and pieces in there. It is beautiful. The building itself is ornate. It is delightful. The people who work there must have been very happy and inspired by its own beauty. And yet it is, of course, a utilitarian building. Drive up the M1 in this country and you'll see these bland boxes that try to sort of hide themselves, which they fail drastically, with all these different ports in which various delivery vans turn up. Distribution centres, I think they're supposed to be. Hideous, ugly things, blots on the landscape. No, in Biggleswick they won't be having that. Buildings that are constructed will be of an ornate and beautiful nature to inspire and to keep people elevated, their vibrations high, not negative and low and down and making it depressive for the workers or anybody who happens to be passing by. Freedom to travel, of course, would be another thing without any interference. No cameras, they wouldn't have any of that nonsense. No spying, no false flags of trying to capture people and make money out of the travelling. No, people in Biggleswick would be able to park freely, travel about and do what they need. It is, of course, about having a free society. Things like fewer rules and regulations. We seem to have got into a point where legislation has gone absolutely bonkers. Somebody wrote to me and said, I've had a ticket for driving into a bus lane by mistake. How do I get out of that? Why is it even a thing? Fewer of this nonsense that is there to just provide money. No. The freedom to travel and have less interference in all those things. And should you happen to have some problem and you do need to go to court, trial by jury, trial by your peers, people who live in the environment of you, who understand your community, understand your town, your tribe, your home, your house, understand the customs of the land. You are tried by them, who not only try you, but try the law that you have supposedly broken, and maybe suspend that rule altogether, or you and that rule, or perhaps one or the other. That each crime, each civil matter is tried independently. A judge is purely there to convene, to bring about and give meaning to the event, rather than making any comment that is likely to influence the jury. The jury are the ones who do the work, 12 just men and women from the community. That's what the people of Biggleswick will be implementing in their world. Honourable authoritative figures. We need people to perhaps set some of these rules to be an example, and they have to be an example. They cannot be corrupt. They cannot have nasty things going on in the background, brown envelopes slipped around in their back pocket when nobody's looking. Honourable people, respectable people that we trust and know and have faith in. They're the sort of people who would be running anything in authority, and fewer of them, fewer authority figures would be the case in Biggleswick. Absolutely. And that includes your policemen, your judges and your councillors. Honourable people who take the oath and are happy to share that oath with you and to be upstanding members of the society and leading by example. And so that we have faith. And if they don't lead by example, if they don't stand up to their principles, then neither should we. And that would be the ruling principle and acceptable thing in Biggleswick. And finally, of course, holistic health. No more of this dishing out pharmaceutical stuff which is got side effects or effects that are not really there to help the symptoms. Holistic health in which herbs and plants and frequencies and some of this stuff that has been buried is coming back, that people are encouraged to find alternatives and more freely and less expensive and not about making money. No more medical interventions for all sorts of people, that people would be encouraged to eat healthily and be healthy instead of eating rubbish and having little white pills. They would be some of the recommendations that I think the people of Biggleswick would want. There may be hundreds more that I haven't thought of. And if you moved to Biggleswick, you would find it a very encouraging place, a place that listens to your ideas, a place that wants to say, yes, we can do that. Let's find out a way to do it, rather than, as we see here, a place that seems to make you feel guilty before and you have to prove you're innocent, that says, no, You can't have that extension. You can't have that bit of place to live in on the landscape. You can't do this and you can't do that. Biggleswick is about saying yes, and we'll find a way to do it. That's the place I want to move to. How about you?